Terri Hall founded the San Antonio Toll Party in 2005. Terri, I think you're more popular than Joe Pags and me combined. She started it as a taxpayer revolt when she learned the Texas Department of Transportation was trying to convert Highway 281 into a tollway. She ultimately formed Texans United for Reform and Freedom at texasturf.org, a statewide group whose goal is to stop the Trans-Texas Corridor. And while she's a regular guest on the Adam McManus Show on 630 KSLR, she claims that her appearances on CNN's Lou Dobbs and American Morning were more exciting. But who can blame her, right? Most importantly, though, she's the bride of Roger, and listen to this, the proud homeschool mother of 7 children, 5 daughters, 2 sons. Please welcome Terri Hall.
We just love you and we're so proud of our Tea Party. How wonderful to be a part of it. I think the words of a patriot of the past, Thomas Paine, that were uttered in 1776 reflect where we find ourselves again today in America. He said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value." Is that not so true today, fellow patriots? The Trans-Texas Corridor and the widespread proliferation of toll roads, particularly the use of public-private partnerships to exploit the eminent domain powers of government and join it with the financial self-interest of private corporations, is nothing more than an all-out assault on our freedom. The freedom to travel, the freedom to own private property, the freedom from oppressive taxation and overbearing government. And that, my friends, is tyranny. Though not easily conquered, it can and must be crushed. The NAFTA superhighway, known as the Trans-Texas Corridor, or the TTC, is called a myth by those trying to silence the truth, but it is very real. It will be up to 1,200 feet wide. That is 4 football fields wide. And it will take a total of 580,000 acres of private Texas land. 2 foreign companies are partnering with an American company and have been given the rights to develop the TTC, which includes the right to build the most lucrative segments without being subjected to competitive bidding. And it will leave the taxpayers to subsidize the parts that aren't toll viable. The TTC will literally bisect whole towns and cities, slicing them in two, giving residents, farmers, and school children no access to the other side of this 1,200-foot wide tollway. In fact, the law states the private operator only has to build overpasses where the corridor intersects current state highways and interstates. So the TTC 35, there would only be 5 exits in the entire state of Texas. So make no mistake.
Ultimately, chop up our freeways into a 2-tiered highway system. One for those who can afford thousands a year in new toll taxes, and one for those that can't. And for those that cannot afford these roads, they become second-class citizens stuck in congestion while still paying gas tax, and will face the reality of having their freeways downgraded to access roads. This is not only un-Texan, it's un-American. TURF has actively worked to effect change in the Texas legislature for the last 2 sessions. I was appalled at the level of corruption and outright contempt for the average citizen in Austin. When we go to testify before and against bills, we literally are the only ordinary citizens in the room. In fact, these hearing rooms are packed, 3 and 4 people deep, standing room only in the back, of nothing but lobbyists. Do you want to know why your phone calls and emails aren't making a difference? Because special interests and lobbyists run our government from the shadows. I like to call them the shadow government. We never elect them. We have no influence over them at the ballot box. They exist solely for their own self-interest to exploit you and I, the taxpayers, in order to increase our tax burden, and it's for their own benefit. It is like a feeding frenzy at the public trough. It's abundantly clear that our elected officials no longer represent us. We have volunteers that have been handing out an important flyer to you today that gives you a list of bills currently before the Texas legislature, which is just a taste of the taxation free-for-all happening in Austin this very hour. Last session, the legislature placed a moratorium on these public-private toll roads. But it was a counterfeit moratorium. At least a dozen of the contracts were taken out of the moratorium, as evidenced by the 2 just signed and given to Sintra that will charge us that 75 cents a mile up in Dallas-Fort Worth. The Texas Senate just passed 2 horrific bills last week. One to reauthorize the private toll contracts that sell our highways off to the highest bidder, and the other that allows them to levy a litany of local taxes on everything that moves. I'll give you the short list. An impact fee for new residents, a tax on passenger vehicles, a vehicle registration tax, a vehicle sales tax, a sales tax, a local gas tax increase, a tax on every mile you drive, a congestion tax on high congestion areas during peak traffic, a driver's license tax, an emissions tax, and even a tax on a parking space. And that's not counting the other transportation taxing zones that will come after your property taxes too. These are just 2 of the 400 transportation bills that is even dwarfed by the 7,000 bills that were filed in the Texas legislature this year alone. Another bill would create an entire state agency to do nothing but write these public-private partnership contracts. This is an outrage, and we cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand or simply wish that this all goes away. We need your help to stop this runaway taxation and this threat to our freedom to travel. We must take our government back. We need to fight for elected representatives who are public servants and statesmen, not self-absorbed politicians who exploit those who they are elected to represent. That means some of you need to be willing to run for office. All of us need to support candidates who value the Constitution more than winning re-election. And we must all get involved in the political process in some way in order to preserve our precious republic for future generations. We need leaders to take an oath to always put the public interest above special interests and put principle over party and values over what's politically expedient. And it all starts with educating ourselves and our children on the founders, their lives, and the principles they fought and died for in order to establish a country based on self-governance, set apart from those before her and after her. And she still stands as a city on a hill today. And like this book, For You They Signed, and this is by Marilyn Boyer, that has the character studies on the lives of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Boy, now more than ever, we need a new generation of patriots willing to mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to once again establish a free republic for our posterity. And we must demand fundamental reform to ensure checks and balances and to put the power back in the hands of the people, as the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees a free people. And if we don't, our government is on track to bankrupt us and future generations. So I ask you, have we had enough?